In the prison, a group of men are playing a slap game. Two men play rock paper scissors. The winner has priority. The man with the mustache beats several players one after another. The whole room is cheering. No one around him dared to fight. At this moment, a new kid raised his hand and challenged him to a fight. The bearded man is a big man, and Hyun Seo is small and thin. The huge difference in size. The crowd didn't think much of Hyun Seo. Soon after the match began, the bearded man was given priority. He grabbed Hyun Seo by the collar. He slapped him so hard, the slap made Hyun Seo almost fall down. When it was Hyun Seo's turn, he hit back hard, but there was a huge difference in strength. The slap was like a tickle to the bearded man. Then they started to slap each other. After a few rounds, Hyun-soo's eyes were glazed over, so when he swung his hand again, he played a smart trick. At the moment of striking, he clenched his palm to make it complete. This directly knocked the bearded man down. The crowd was cheering for Hyun Seo, but Han, who was sitting on the sidelines, saw what was going on. When he learnt that Hyun Seo was cheating, bearded man's little brother immediately attacked Hyun-soo. Although Hyun-soo is small in strength, he is very agile. Not only was he able to fight against the others, he even beat the bearded man on the ground, until he was subdued by the prison guards. Han admired Hyun-soo. He took the initiative to help him with the aftermath. At night, Han found Hyun Seo. He warned him not to make trouble. He warned him not to break the rules here, though it was a warning on the surface. But in his heart, Han admired Hyun Seo. Han was the second in command of a triad organization. He went to prison for working for his boss. In prison, the right to distribute cigarettes is a very important source of money. For that right, a lot of bullies and snakes killed each other. But Han, on his own, he beat all the competitors. He colluded with the guards to monopolize the cigarette trade. He became the boss of the prison. Everything had to be done according to his rules. His rules. He was living the good life. Until one day, a man appeared, shattered the balance of this place. Jin Sung-han is a famous crime lord. Even Han was afraid of him. In order to make peace with him, Han took the initiative to make concessions. Half of the cigarette business. He gave him a 50-50 split. Obviously, Jin Cheng-han did not accept this. Not only did he refuse in public, he joined forces with the warden to beat him up, and dispersed all of Han's power, replaced Han as the new boss of the prison. That's not all. He sent someone to assassinate Han. Luckily, Hyun Seo spotted them. He rushed to stop him. He saved Han's life. In order to help Han out of his predicament, Hyun-soo devised an excellent plan for him. The two of them worked together. Hyun Seo found Han's mobile phone. Inside were photos of him selling cigarettes. He wanted to report them on the internet for smuggling cigarettes. Once Han is exposed, he'll give up the warden. In order to save his reputation, the warden had to cooperate with Han to betray Kim Sung-han. Han tied him to a chair. He poured boiling oil on the man's legs. The screams of pain echoed throughout the prison. Han couldn't understand. She had been forced to lose everything. Why did Jin Sung-han still want to kill her? After the torture, her brother, who couldn't stand the torture, told the truth. It turns out, Han and his elder brother, Chairman Gao, have opened an aquatic company. On the surface, it's an import business. Secretly, they use seafood to smuggle drugs. Now that the boss is making a lot of money, he wants to get rid of him. Han decided to start his own road to revenge. The prison gates slowly opened. A young man walked out. A dozen cars are neatly parked aside. Dozens of minions in suits standing in a row. In the red sports car in front, the boss came to pick him up. There's a blonde girl in the car to greet him. This is not the kind of arrangement that ordinary people can have. In order to get hold of evidence of drug trafficking in the Teo group, Hyun Seo was secretly arranged to be an undercover agent. He went to prison to get close to their second-in-command, Han Jae-ho. At first, Hyun Seo resisted the assignment, but his mother had a serious kidney disease. The former captain promised him that he would accept the mission. He would find a kidney source for his mother, and the cost of dialysis will be paid by the police before that. For the sake of his mother's health, Hyun Seo had to agree. In prison, Hyun Seo helped Han get back his position as the boss. He managed to get close to Han. He called the ex-captain to report the progress of the situation in the prison. The ex-captain also brought him good news. He had found a kidney for his mother. Hyun Seo was overjoyed at the news, but things didn't go as planned. On the way to the hospital, she died in a car accident. When he learnt of his mother's death, Hyun-soo was devastated. He called his ex-captain. He wanted to go out and give his mother a funeral, but the ex-captain was afraid that his undercover mission would be exposed. He refused his request and threatened to delete his record if he disclosed the undercover mission. He threatened to delete his record in the police station, making him an ex-convict. The helpless Hyun-seo went back to prison. He lost control of his emotions. He even beat up Han. Han beat him up, then he calmed him down. The next day, the guards came to Hyun-soo. He told him he could go out for a day. It turned out that Han had threatened the guard. He told him to give him a leave of absence. He even paid for his funeral. Looking at his mother's cold body, Hyun-soo cried bitterly. Hyun-soo is a kind-hearted man. He felt guilty because he was helped by Han. He went back to the house. He took the initiative to confess. He confessed his identity as an undercover agent. But Han didn't blame him. He even invited him to join the club. Soon both of them were released from prison. Hyun-soo, who was Han's brother, he was able to join the Taeo group. On this day, Chairman Gao sent Hyun-soo. He was worried that Hyun-soo couldn't handle it alone. He was worried that Hyun-seo couldn't handle it alone. Han and his men were waiting outside. When he heard the sound of fighting inside, he rushed in to help. After the fight, Hyun-seo deliberately used the watch with the listening device. He beat up Captain Choi. The police came to deliver Hyun-seo's new watch and Han saw him. Even though Han knew about Hyun-seo's undercover identity all along, but he still didn't feel comfortable searching him, because during his decades in the underworld, Han had experienced countless betrayals. He never dared to trust anyone. When Han wanted to bring in Hyun-seo, he was careful. He asked his buddies to check his background. He was surprised to find out that Hyun-seo was an undercover cop. He was approaching him for another reason, but Hyun-seo was a good fighter and smart. Thinking back to the time when Hyun-seo tried his best to save himself, the way he fought with others, Han thought it would be a shame to get rid of Hyun-seo. He's going to try to get close to him. If that didn't work, then he'd kill him. So Han started a plan. He had Hyun-seo's mother killed. Then he gave him a helping hand, so that Hyun-seo would be grateful, so that Hyun-seo would be truly loyal to himself. This man was kidnapped. He thought he was being kidnapped by gangsters, but it was the police who kidnapped him. This is a confirmation procedure set up by the police to test loyalty. The police set up a confirmation procedure. Undercover agent Hyun-soo passed with flying colors. Although Hyun-seo passed the test with flying colors, but the ex-captain still had one concern. He found out that Hyun-soo's mother was killed by Han's men. Hyun-soo's mother was killed by Han's men, but he was desperate for promotion. He was desperate to get his hands on the Taeo group. He was afraid of compromising his undercover plan. He didn't tell Hyun-seo the truth. Meanwhile, Chairman Ko was preparing to make an import deal with Russian drug dealers. With Russian drug dealers, Hyun-seo passed the news to the ex-captain. When he got the news, the ex-captain went to the scene with a large number of officers to arrest the dealers. But when he opened the case, he found it was full of toys. It turned out that the information sent back by Hyun-seo was false. The real place of the deal was on the sea. Just as Chairman Ko was about to celebrate, he was about to raise a glass to celebrate. The lights turned off. With a few gunshots, President Gao's men fell down. Han has successfully taken over the Taeo group. He's the new boss. After the failure of the last operation, in order to drive a wedge between Hyun-soo and Han, the ex-captain showed Hyun-seo the video of his mother's car accident. Looking at the familiar face in the video, thinking back to what Han said,
그런 일 없었으면 네가 지금 내 옆에 없었겠지.
I learned the truth about my mother's death, and the murderer was his most trusted brother. Hyun-seo was completely devastated. He didn't understand what he had done wrong. Everyone around him lied to him. In order to avenge his mother's death, Hyun-seo called Han. He said he was under internal investigation. You're in danger too. There must be a traitor inside. The only one who knows the identity of Hyun-soo's undercover agent is himself. Is Executive Director Gao. Han then turned his attention to Gao. Xianxiu asked Han to arrange for his men first go out to avoid the wind, then agreed to meet with Han at the same place. At night, Han called Gao to his office. In the evening, Han called Executive Gao to his office to finish him off. He desperately tried to explain to Han that he was not a traitor, but Han didn't believe him. He beat him to death with a stick. Then Han drove to the place. He drove to the place where he had an appointment with Hyun-soo. On the way, Han seems to have sensed something, but he was determined to go to the meeting place. When he arrived at the meeting place, Han was very sensitive. The water truck was suspicious. He had a chance to escape, but he didn't. He was tired of this life of fighting and killing. He wanted to end it. Hyun Seo choked and asked Han, "Why did you kill your mother?" Han knew this would be the end. He pulled out his gun and pointed it at Hyun-soo, but he never pulled the trigger. Hyun-soo realized that he couldn't fire the gun. He smiled bitterly and asked him if it was because of his guilt. He turned around and sat down on the sofa. But he couldn't hold back. He told Han all about his plan with the ex-captain. Then he hid in the house. He killed all the policemen who rushed to him. Then he held a gun to Hyun Seo's head. But he couldn't do it. Finally, Han walked out of the house shaking. He was run over by the ex-captain, who was guarding the door. And then, he couldn't wait to take the car keys from Han. He opened the boot. He finally found what he'd been thinking about. At the expense of a whole team of colleagues. At the expense of an entire team. With this dirt, she'll wipe out the Teo group once and for all. She'll get a promotion and a raise. Then Hyun Seo came out of the house. He shot the ex-captain who only cared about performance. He shot the ex-captain who only cared about performance. He shot all the bullets on Captain Chien. Then he wiped his fingerprints all over his body. He put the gun in Han's hand, but Han smiled and said to Hyun-soo, Hyun Seo put his hand over Han's mouth and nose. Han didn't resist. In the end, Hyun Seo lay alone in the convertible. A tear escaped from the corner of his eye.